Hang on, I'm forgetting something. That's better. Hi, I'm LimeyPlay and thank you for joining me today. Those that missed my stream earlier this week may be asking why the pink hair, and excuse the mess, I've got a bit of bedhead. It is to show support for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, which is obviously this month, October. And it was originally Johnny O from the Potholes idea to help raise money for respective charities. He is collecting money for the Pink Fund, which helps women suffering from breast cancer and all the problems that come along with that over in the States. And I decided to also collect, obviously, for the UK Pink Ribbon Foundation. So I have included links for both charities as well as links to my PayPal and Johnny O's PayPal donation link, if you would be so kind as to donate and help support a wonderful cause. So, what do we have in store today?
Harriet, a force of gravity cannot exist, and I'll explain why.
Brian's logic. A bit of an anacronym, really. But, hey, we're already here, so let's check it out.
Because objects weigh more in a vacuum than they do in air.
This actually supports gravity and is explained by buoyancy, more aptly, the Archimedes principle. But please do continue.
So, as you rise, you're rising into a lower pressure all the time as you rise. Lower air pressure. That means you're rising closer to a vacuum. That means you have to be gaining weight as you rise and not losing it. Because the claim of a force of gravity is that you have the most weight on the ground that's given to you by this claimed force of gravity due to a mass attracting mass situation. And as you rise away from the earth, that you're actually losing weight because you're moving away from this gravitational force.
Sounds like you're actually understanding this. I'm sensing a but coming.
But,
aha!
So when you see people claim to be jumping around on the moon and other things like that, know that that stuff is impossible and doesn't happen.
Yeah, Brian, it does happen.
Because objects weigh more in a vacuum, not less. Thank you.
Well, that was absolutely pointless and shows no understanding whatsoever. Still, it does remind me of someone else. Ah yes, Sleeping Rachie, Riley's star pupil. Let's hope she tries to provide some proof to back up her claims.
So here are some formulas and a presentation about relative density disequilibrium.
Well, colour me surprised. She's got some formulas for us.
First of all, let's get one thing straight. Density on its own has no direction.
You're absolutely right. Density has no direction. But hang on just a minute. Let me check something.
So what's the cause? Well, scientific method states that the independent variable is the presumed cause, and I presumed that changing the density of the liquid with salt would cause displacement. Newton's first law of motion states that every object will remain at rest unless acted upon by a force, and I've obviously created a force.
Thought so. Riley's relative density disequilibrium concept had density as the reason things move. Has his protege just debunked him? Oh, this should be fun. Before we get back to Rachie though, apparently there are some questions for the globe side that she's going to pose at the end of her video. So be sure to stay tuned until the end so that you can check that out.
If I give you a density of 5 kilograms per meter cubed, you cannot determine the direction that the object will go.
Very true, we do need more information. Information is key to scientific study. We want to know as much information as possible so that we can actually give accurate results.
Similarly, if I give you a mass of 5 kilograms and the supposed acceleration due to gravity 9.81 meters per second, you still cannot tell me what direction that 5 kilograms mass will go. We need more information. Density alone, mass and acceleration alone cannot tell us this.
Gravitational acceleration can indeed give us direction, but we still need more information. Is the medium contained? Is the object already in motion, or has it been thrown across a different vector or just dropped straight down? There are many things that we would need to take into account to formulate an accurate answer. This kind of, I don't know, would it be an argument from ignorance? Rachel's posed a question with enough information missing to pretty much make it impossible to answer. I mean, of course we could speculate, but to answer accurately, she's not really giving us a proper chance. Still, her representation of Riley's relative density disequilibrium wouldn't be able to answer this either. Rachel's either being intentionally misleading, or she understands physics about as much as Leaking Warrior.
Hey, they love mass so much, let's give them the mass of the medium and say it's 10,000 kilograms. Can they now tell me the direction using gravity and mass? Nope. So, mass and 9.81 meters per second can't give us direction, even with the mass of the medium.
Argument from repetition, but carry on.
So now we have established that mass and acceleration and mass of the medium cannot give us a direction. So how do we get the direction? Because clearly the mass of the object, acceleration and mass of the medium cannot tell us this.
This I'm actually interested to see, because it won't. Unless Rachel's only thinking in terms of up and down. So yeah, I guess we'll see.
Well, first there is the well-known relative density, also known as specific gravity. This is what they like to straw man with, and say it has no units and is only a ratio. However, unlike gravity and mass, this will give us the direction. However, although this can be used, I prefer to keep units and do it another way. But while we are on relative density, specific gravity, if we had an object 10 kilograms per meter cubed and a medium 300 kilograms per meter cubed, we do 10 kilograms per meter cubed divided by 300 kilograms per meter cubed equals 0.33 recurring. Because it's less than 1, it will float. Here is a short clip to help explain. Okay, so that is relative density, specific gravity. It can also be used to tell us how much of an object will float. For instance, 917 kilograms per meter cubed divided by 997 kilograms per meter cubed equals 0.9. This means 90% of the object will be submerged.
It's actually closer to 92%. I don't know why flat earthers never want to be accurate, often even leaving off a lot of the decimals. Temperature would also be a factor here, but again, so far there's nothing to rule out gravity and nothing to show how relative density disequilibrium is going to give direction. All you've done really, Rachel, is taken our established equations for buoyancy, which relies on gravitational acceleration, which has been measured, and then jump to a formula which really just tells us how much of an object is submerged. At this point, the burden of proof still lies firmly on your shoulders. Guess this is another classic flat earth straw man.
Now, when I was experimenting, I came to another conclusion, maths-wise. So, for me, I do the density of the medium minus the density of the object. Negative number represents down / sink / fall. Positive number represents up / rise / float.
Congratulations, you found a slightly more convoluted way of saying that objects that are denser than the medium will sink, whereas ones that are less dense will float. Yeah, congratulations, just amazing.
So, for example, medium density 997 kilograms per meter cubed, object density 100 kilograms per meter cubed, 997 kilograms per meter cubed minus 100 kilograms per meter cubed equals 897 kilograms. It is a positive number and, thus, the object will float / rise / go up. As you can see, we keep the units too, as some had a big problem with relative density, specific gravity, being unitless.
We know this already.
So, again, here is a short clip to help you understand.
Is it just me, or does Rachel come across as thinking that everyone else is an idiot? I mean, this really doesn't need an example. So we'll speed through this one. So what we saw there was a demonstration of density affecting buoyancy, not weight. This is because the denser something is, the greater the concentration of that mass, which increases the gravitational pull on said mass. In an object of the same size that is less dense, it would obviously be a much weaker pull.
Now, I gave some formulas for how high, etc. in my last video. However, people say the 9.81 meters per second is from gravity that I am using. Nope, it's from a vacuum testing the rate of disequilibrium. So, first, what is disequilibrium?
Nope, it's from gravity. It can be measured outside of a vacuum. We can measure it at different altitudes and see a difference. And we can demonstrate it with the Cavendish experiment, which wouldn't work with your relative density disequilibrium. Try again.
Disequilibrium is the uneven distribution of mass. So, if mass was evenly distributed, for example everything was 10 kilograms per meter cubed, nothing would rise or fall. Therefore proving acceleration come from disequilibrium.
I'm assuming this example doesn't allow for changes in density from temperature fluctuation? Well, no matter, you still haven't disproven gravity. If everything on Earth had the same density, it would just mean that gravity would pretty much act on it all equally, except at different altitudes, of course.
Now, I want to be clear, the amount of disequilibrium doesn't affect the acceleration rate.
Example, in a vacuum,
One object, 10 kilograms per meter cubed, and another object, 1000 kilograms per meter cubed, still fall at the same rate. Therefore, proving the amount of disequilibrium does not affect the acceleration rate.
It can,
however, be affected by other things.
So you're saying that relative density disequilibrium doesn't affect acceleration? Gravity does? I thought we were actually trying to disprove gravity. Not too good so far.
This is why it's best to find the rate of acceleration from disequilibrium, the uneven distribution of mass, in a vacuum. Because you are removing/negating most other effects/factors that may influence and change the rate of acceleration. You are removing resistance and drag due to a medium, temperature, and pressure fluctuations, etc. However, I believe there still needs to be other things ruled out too, but I digress. So, because, in a vacuum, most other effects are negated/removed, we are left with the acceleration rate, due to disequilibrium. Remember, if that vacuum was filled with a medium 10 kilograms per meter cubed and the object was 10 kilograms per meter cubed, it wouldn't rise or fall as a mass would be evenly distributed. Thus, again proving the acceleration comes from disequilibrium, uneven distribution of mass.
Again, we have a flat earther desperately trying to prove their case by misunderstanding and twisting facts to suit their cause. Rachel, what you've actually done is just shown that you've made up your mind ahead of time and you're now trying to twist everything to get, or try and get, to the answer that you want. Unfortunately, you're still way off base. In reality, you're actually pretty close to explaining how we know it's gravity. Now, depending on exactly what we're looking at, what situation, there can be many factors that, are involved in calculating the net force as the air is removed from the vacuum chamber. And because this object is larger, has a larger surface area that the air was pushing up against, it ends up sinking. As you yourself explained, in a vacuum, we've removed resistances. So in a vacuum, weight is the only thing acting on the object, which as we know is mass times gravitational acceleration. We also know, as stated by Newton's second law of motion, that force is equal to mass times acceleration. So from this we know that acceleration would be force divided by mass. Since in a vacuum weight is our only force acting on the object, it means that acceleration is weight divided by mass. Now, because weight is equal to mass times gravitational acceleration, it now means acceleration is equal to mg over m, mass times gravitational acceleration divided by mass. We can cancel out both of the mass, so in a vacuum we've now shown that acceleration equals gravitational acceleration. This is why in a vacuum all objects in free fall, regardless of density or size, will fall at the same rate.
Now, people say you can't get weight or force from RDD.
Well, actually, you can.
Now, obviously, disequilibrium is 9.81 meters per second. So,
let's say an object is more dense than the medium.
and is falling at the disequilibrium rate without any resistance, etc., due to the medium. The force which it is falling with can be calculated as its density times its volume times 9.81. So, F equals PVD, where P is object density, V is object's volume, and D is disequilibrium rate.
I'm sorry, can you explain how you got your disequilibrium rate? We got the rates for gravity by actually measuring it at different altitudes and different locations on Earth. You've just basically taken that and renamed it. Not very scientific. As for your equation, I have a couple of problems. Firstly, we already use D in physics to symbolize change. I think you even said to me in your comment that you can guarantee you understand all this stuff more than I do. And as most flat earthers seem to think they understand science more than the rest of us, you'd think you'd know how to create a proper equation. Next, you're saying that force is equal to PVD density times volume times your disequilibrium value. Density is mass divided by volume. So that times volume just gives you mass. So why wouldn't the equation just simply be F equals md? If we look at it in the real world, that would be F equals mg, which, funnily enough, when we're saying in a vacuum that the only force is weight, which is mg, it just seems like you're proving our point, but trying to make it your own. Sadly, I'm sure there are going to be a lot of people that, because they want to believe in flat earth, they are going to believe your logic. Fucking terrible. But more importantly, because we're able to take away that P, just times it by the volume, and just change it to mass, you've just removed density from your relative density disequilibrium argument.
This is essentially F equals ma, as P times V equals m, and A is D, disequilibrium rate. However, I see a problem. Do you? F equals ma works for a falling object.
Now, what is the weight?
Normally, W equals mg. So, F equals W, m equals m, A equals g, W equals mg is the same as F equals ma.
F equals ma, force equals mass times acceleration, 9.81. W equals mg, weight equals mass times g, 9.81. They are the exact same thing. We can even say W equals ma, F equals ma. So, essentially, force and weight are the same thing.
In a vacuum, yes.
Now, here's the problem. W equals mg, right? So, let's say I have an object I want to weigh. It has a mass of 20 kilograms and g equals 9.81. So, 20 times 9.81 equals 196 newtons. So, no matter what, that object should weigh the same, according to W equals mg. Apparently, it's not medium dependent, else medium would be in the formula. So, it has the same mass and the same g.
In Newtonian physics, weight is not dependent on the medium. As the medium does not change the actual mass of an object, and it doesn't change the gravitational acceleration value at that location or whatever, it has no change to the actual weight. However, this is where net force comes in. Now, depending on what we're looking at, there are many factors that can be involved with calculating net force. Air pressure, resistances, apparent motion of the object or surrounding objects, and vectors would also come into play.
So, let's watch a short clip.
Now we are going to see if the weight is changing in a vacuum chamber. To do it, I'm going to use a balance scale like this. At one side, I'm going to use some light stuff like this wood, pine. At the other side, I'm going to use some heavy metals like platinum and lead. And now, let's see what's happened.
That's an excellent example of why we sometimes use net force. So we see here how the larger object appears to get heavier as air is removed from the vacuum chamber. But how does this happen? Before the air is removed, the object is displacing the air as it is being pulled towards Earth's center by gravity. As such, the air is getting sort of compacted beneath it and moved around it, and it is creating a bit of an uplift underneath the object. This is easier to demonstrate in a liquid, as we can actually measure the weight of the displaced medium and find that the weight of the displaced medium added to the weight of the object when in said medium, you add those together and you get the weight of the object when it's weighed in the air. Remembering that our atmosphere is also fluid, this is why there is uplift underneath it. This uplift is removed as the air is removed from the vacuum chamber, and because this object is larger, has a larger surface area that the air was pushing up against, it ends up sinking.
So, as you can see, weight is medium dependent. It got heavier when the medium was removed. Weight is dependent on the medium. So, why is it when an object is buoyant on normal scales, it reads the same weight for the object as it does when weighed not buoyant? After all, we have just seen that the medium reduces the weight.
No, we have just seen that you don't understand what weight is. As always, it just comes down to a misunderstanding of science and how it's used. Just as we can use Newtonian gravity here on Earth and treat gravity as a force at this micro level, when weighing things, we can just stick to mass time or m times g. It's not until you get into really accurate stuff that you need to worry about net force.
Over to you, Globers, for an explanation. Using W equals mg, tell me why it was lighter in air and heavier in the vacuum. And, why don't we get the same results with kitchen scales, if weight is not buoyancy and medium dependent?
Obviously, as already said, we'd get different results with different surface areas. With the balance scales, that one object didn't even completely fit in the little tray. So there's a much larger surface area for the air to push up against. Still, way to go, I guess. You tried to use equations that have been tested rigorously and that we know work as gravity. It's been tested in many ways, and tried to twist them towards your disequilibrium argument. And again, sadly, some people are going to believe what you're saying. Look at Brian's logic from the beginning of this video. But it is just a complete misunderstanding, and it highlights how important, maybe now more than ever, education is becoming, because the lack of education is really letting you guys down. Now, I'm not going to bother reading or even typing for the voice to read these equations out loud, because frankly, her complete and utter bollocks is giving me a headache. But this bit cracked me up. Then we do the weight, force, divided by the original mass, not relative. So the density times the volume without the medium taken off. And this gives us the acceleration rate. The problem is, Rachel, you've not really explained where the rate of disequilibrium came from in the first place. How was it measured? Exactly. I'm sure you'll say it was basically done the same way as gravity was, but that they didn't realise what they were measuring. But we've worked it out pretty bloody good, and we can even detect gravitational waves, and it all matches up with measurements and what we expect gravitational acceleration to be in those areas. You wouldn't be able to detect waves from relative density disequilibrium. God, it's getting to be a bit of a tongue twister, that one. But yeah, it just wouldn't work. This whole video is you hijacking real science, proven science, and repackaging it to try and support poor Daddy Riley's RDD experiment that he's so fucking proud of. Epic fail. Still, let's watch to the end for any final questions from Rachel.
Now, here's another question for Globers. You say density towers only exist because of gravity. That gravity is the reason for density towers. And gravity is a downwards acceleration, falling. So, why is it when a density tower is on a vomit comet, you seem to think they don't work? You have gravity, that's why you're falling, remember, so why does gravity fail to make them work then? Why is it only when the normal force of the floor returns, aka when you stop falling, that a density tower works, even though gravity is why you're falling, and you have gravity, so why do you think they don't work?
That's because the vomit comet puts you at microgravity. The parabolic maneuver is essentially removing gravity for a time. This allows all of the mediums of different density to start behaving chaotically. You know, they're able to move in any direction that they want, and thus mix. As soon as the parabolic maneuver ends and gravity is restored, they, you know, will sort of reset to their relative positions. Well, I must say that was fun, but also a bit disconcerting. You know, there are going to be people that are going to see this as a win for Flat Earth, and really it's just a loss for the collective, you know, scientific understanding of our planet. If anything, it really does show just how important education is. Hopefully any new people, or, you know, well, any flat earther or truth seeker, as they like to call themselves, will question every single aspect of Ricci's equations and ask exactly, where did this come from? Where did that come from? You know, this doesn't seem to make sense. Fucking hell. Now I'm tired. Please don't forget that you can support me and the channel through Patreon, PayPal, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, discording, dancing, whatever-ing. Also, you can also donate through my PayPal or directly to or through Johnny O's PayPal donation link, or directly to either, for the US, the Pink Fund, or for the UK, Pink Ribbon Foundation in support of breast cancer awareness. Again, this will be going for all of October. As obviously I don't have a business PayPal, so I am not able to set up an actual donation link. So because I also receive, you know, donations to support the channel through the PayPal, basically, if you want it to be for me, specify anything obviously specified for breast cancer awareness, or anything that doesn't have a message attached at all, so could be one or the other. That's all going to breast cancer awareness for the month of October. Aside from that, as always, I've been LimeyPlay. Take care of each other and stay safe.